First impressions about this event with the John McCain. I think the Navy is going to handle this completely differently than they handled the Fitzgerald. Now, they have a little bit of a different situation. The John McCain is in Singapore. The Fitzgerald had been able to make it back to Fleet Activities home base, Yokosuka, so it wasn't very difficult for the Admiral to set up a press conference with the ship in the background. But I don't think we're going to be seeing any press conferences anytime soon about this event. Now, of course, I'll say that, and they'll have one in an hour or two. But first thing we, of course, can look at here is this is the Alnick MC. This is the ship in question that collided with the McCain. And the bow of it looks pretty much identical to the ACX Crystal. We have our infamous bulbous bow, the new most terrifying weapon, at least to U.S. Navy destroyers on the high seas. And, we see its blunt edge. And now this picture here, I do not believe is post-accident. I believe this is an old file photo, so don't take anything away from that versus the accident. But it goes to what you would have thought you would have seen with the Fitzgerald. And I'm going to go here to the picture of the McCain. What you see is damage here at the rail. You see dents, scrapes all the way down from the stem. And then you see this giant eraser head-like indentation into the side of the ship at the waterline. And that is what you would have thought would have happened with the Fitz. Now, when we looked at the Fitz, now remember, this is about the same, almost exactly the same ship. It's a different point on the ship, of course. So you're not going to see the superstructure damage. I mean, I get that, but look at this. You have this giant mess of a mangle up here, and then this little dent, and then almost pristine, as if nothing happened here. And 3 weeks to have secret underwater welding teams, and they were secret because nobody knew about them until the day before they pulled this thing into dry dock to let the water out. That's why I call them secret underwater welding teams. Nobody said a word about these underwater welding teams when they brought this thing in. And then way down here, somewhere, there is a little puncture hole down near the keel of the ship. Giant difference. Huge difference between the Fitzgerald and the McCain. At least in this sense. Now I know, like I said, this is starboard to mid, and then the other one is port, way aft. So I'm sure you can probably attribute some of the difference to that. But, I mean, here's the Crystal. And there's the Alnick. I mean, the bow shape's a little bit different, but not much. And you see the stem here, where the damage where it hit, and this is kind of a little bit overexposed, so you don't see as much of the gray as you do in other pictures. But, there's other pictures here, like this one, where you can clearly see that the bow wasn't that far below the waterline. And this is post-accident right here. This is right after the hit. And you can see this bow is not 30 feet below the waterline right here. There's not 30 feet of water here, folks. It's just not the case. And now you can say, well, she was ballasted lower, she was ballasted higher. Maybe that was the case, but at this point in this picture, she was still loaded. So you're saying that she dropped ballast to come into port? Okay, maybe she did. But you still, when you look at the distances in question, it's still very... I went ahead and just made the assertion just for the argument's sake, just to go forward about the damage. But now that we actually see another event with a bulbous bow, and we see a completely different style of damage from almost the same weapon, folks, it doesn't make sense. It really doesn't make sense. And the fact that it's happened now, what, twice in 2 months. The initial, if you go way, 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 way back to June 17th, my first video, before I really knew any of the information, my first impression was that there was somebody mucking with satellite signals, and that a ship down here on the surface was getting information from a satellite saying it was at point X when really it was at point Y. And it was using that false information to move, and that would, you know, when you're out in the open water, and it would be very hard to visually determine that you weren't where this satellite was telling you you were. You know, I know onboard localized radar systems might give you a different, might have you, you know, arguing with what the satellite's saying. But if that is the case of what's going on, that could explain the confusion. And it wouldn't take much. You wouldn't have to say something was a mile away. If you had something that was just literally, in this case, what it looks like a few hundred feet away from where they thought they were when they thought they were going to miss and they hit. Now, if I've done my math right on this, this was reported last night, 7:30 to 8 p.m. Eastern time. I think they're 12 to 13 hours ahead of us. So this was daylight when this happened. So this wasn't a nighttime issue. So there was no issue that way. She would have not had her quote-unquote skeleton crew, night crew aboard. She would have, or not aboard, but on duty. You know, she should have had her, you know, normal crew. Captain should have been on the bridge. So we're going to see probably an entirely different story here. This is closer to the rear of the ship, like I had alleged in other videos about, you know, if the collision with the Fitzgerald had been where they clipped her on the rear trying to miss, I'd be like, okay, well, maybe she just, you know, mistimed it by a few seconds. When we get information about speeds, directions of travel, and all that stuff, we can probably do a little bit better analysis. This is just a first blush. But like that, you know, like's been reported, we've got 4 different issues. You know, the thing with the Antietam, that's widely not known. That wasn't something a lot of people knew. People knew about the Champlain, but people didn't know about the Antietam running aground. And it is a strange thing that we have ships that have a wrong picture of where they are out on the sea, and for these things to be happening. So I think we might have to go down that road. I'm not sure if there was any delay in communications here. Once again, we are operating on about, what, 12 hours after the event, so we're going to be very limited. Very, very limited. I didn't even do my first video after the issue with the Fitzgerald until, you know, I think I did the very, very first one the day of, but the videos didn't really start gearing up until a few days after, when the bulk of the information came out. So well done to everyone out there who has sent me messages and given me information and links to pictures and photos and information already. You guys are way ahead of the ball game, and that is what I have come to expect from the Florida Maquis channel supporters. You guys are the best at what you do. Unfortunately, I got to get out of here and head to work, so I will probably not be back here to say anything about it, but I will monitor it during activities today and see what we can put together a little bit later. Thank you again for the support. I really appreciate it. Like, share, subscribe. We will see you next time. Thank you.